The small roadside diner was filled with the comforting smell of fresh coffee, eggs, and buttered toast. Regular customers chatted quietly while country music played softly in the background. At a corner table sat Daniel Hayes, a 42-year-old single father with a muscular athletic build, short dark brown hair and light stubble, wearing the same fitted light gray long sleeve, Henley shirt and dark blue jeans exactly like the thumbnail. He wasn't dressed like a government official. He looked like an ordinary man enjoying breakfast before work. On the table sat a plate of eggs, toast, hash browns, a cup of black coffee, and his black leather wallet. Inside his wallet, hidden beneath an ordinary driver's license, was an FBI director identification card. Only a handful of people in the country knew his real position. After years working undercover against organized crime, Daniel had learned never to advertise who he really was. Every Friday morning, he visited the same diner. The elderly waitress, Margaret Collins, smiled warmly as she refilled his coffee. "The usual, Daniel?" He smiled. "You always remember." Before Margaret could answer, the front door slammed open. Sheriff Victor Malone, a 50-year-old broad-shouldered officer with a military buzz cut, entered wearing the same tan sheriff's uniform with dark brown shoulder panels and a gold sheriff's badge exactly like the thumbnail. Two deputy sheriffs followed him inside. The entire diner became quiet. Victor looked directly at Daniel. "There he is." Daniel slowly looked up. "Can I help you, Sheriff?" Victor threw a folded photograph onto the table. "We've been looking for a suspect matching your description." Daniel calmly glanced at the photograph. "It isn't me." Victor smirked. "That's exactly what guilty people say." The customers exchanged nervous glances. Margaret stepped forward. "Sheriff, Daniel comes here every Friday. He's a good man." Victor ignored her. Instead, he grabbed Daniel's shoulder. "Stand up." Daniel remained calm. "I'll gladly cooperate." "But you're making a mistake." Victor laughed loudly. "We'll see about that." Then, in front of the entire diner, he slammed Daniel onto the breakfast table. Coffee spilled everywhere. The plate shattered onto the floor. Before anyone could react, cold steel handcuffs clicked around Daniel's wrists. The sheriff smiled proudly. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." The entire diner watched in stunned silence. No one knew. The man being arrested was actually the director of the FBI. The handcuffs clicked shut. The diner fell completely silent. Sheriff Victor Malone tightened his grip on Daniel's arm. "You've been avoiding us for weeks." Daniel looked at him calmly. "No, Sheriff. You've simply been looking for the wrong man." Victor laughed. "I've heard every excuse." He pushed Daniel toward the center of the diner. The spilled coffee dripped from the edge of the table. The elderly waitress, Margaret Collins, rushed forward. "Please, Sheriff." "He's been eating breakfast here every Friday for almost 5 years. He has never caused a single problem." Victor didn't even look at her. "Stay out of police business." Daniel remained remarkably calm. "Before you embarrass yourself any further, would you at least verify my identity?" Victor pulled Daniel's wallet from the table. He opened it carelessly. Only the driver's license caught his attention. He never looked behind it. "Daniel Hayes. That tells me nothing." He tossed the wallet back onto the table. Several customers began recording with their phones. One deputy leaned toward Victor. "Sheriff, maybe we should run his information first." Victor shook his head. "I don't need a computer to know a criminal when I see one." Daniel sighed quietly. "Confidence without evidence is dangerous." Victor smirked. "You still think you're walking out of here?" Daniel answered calmly. "I know I am." Just then, the diner's front door opened once again. 4 black SUVs pulled into the parking lot outside. Men and women in dark suits stepped out simultaneously. Each wore an FBI badge clipped to a tactical vest. The lead agent entered the diner first. He looked around the room. Then his eyes landed on Daniel. Still wearing handcuffs, the agent's expression immediately changed. He removed his sunglasses. His voice echoed through the silent diner. "Who handcuffed Director Hayes?" Every customer froze. The deputy sheriff slowly turned toward Victor. Sheriff Malone's confident smile disappeared. His face went completely pale. The diner became so quiet that even the coffee machine could be heard. Sheriff Victor Malone slowly released Daniel's arm.
What did you just say?
The lead FBI agent stepped forward, his badge clearly visible.
I asked, who handcuffed Director Daniel Hayes?
The deputy sheriffs immediately looked at one another. One quietly lowered his head. Victor forced an awkward laugh.
There must be some mistake. He matches the suspect.
The FBI agent handed Victor a classified file.
You arrested the man who has been
leading the largest organized crime investigation in this region. Daniel remained calm. He never raised his voice. He simply looked at Victor and said,
I asked you to verify my identity.
You chose your assumptions instead. The elderly waitress, Margaret, wiped tears from her eyes.
I told you he was a good man.
Victor swallowed nervously. One of the FBI agents stepped behind Daniel and unlocked the handcuffs. The metal cuffs dropped onto the diner floor with a loud clang. Every customer watched in silence. Daniel calmly rubbed his wrists. He wasn't angry. He wasn't embarrassed. He simply picked up the framed photograph of his young daughter from inside his jacket pocket and brushed a little coffee from it. The lead FBI agent looked at him. Director Hayes, your task force is ready. Daniel nodded. Then he turned toward Victor. You judged a father eating breakfast before you ever looked at the facts. Victor lowered his eyes. For the first time in years, he had nothing to say. Just then, another black SUV pulled into the parking lot. A distinguished elderly man in an expensive navy suit stepped out. The moment Victor saw him, his face turned white. It was Governor William Harper, and he was walking straight toward Daniel. The governor smiled warmly, extended his hand, and said, Director Hayes, the president is waiting for your report. The entire diner gasped. Victor realized he hadn't just arrested an FBI director. He had handcuffed one of the most trusted federal officials in the country. The governor entered the diner. Every deputy immediately stood at attention. Governor William Harper walked straight toward Daniel Hayes. Without hesitation, he extended his hand. Director Hayes, thank you for everything you've done for this state. The entire diner was speechless. Sheriff Victor Malone felt the color drain from his face. Only minutes earlier, he had slammed this same man onto a breakfast table and handcuffed him in front of everyone. The governor looked toward Victor. Is there a reason the director of the FBI was treated like a criminal without verifying his identity? Victor lowered his head.
I made a mistake.
Daniel calmly picked up the overturned coffee cup from the table and placed it upright. He looked at the frightened sheriff. The problem wasn't the handcuffs. The problem was deciding I was guilty before looking at the facts. The diner fell silent. Margaret, the elderly waitress, quietly placed a fresh cup of coffee in front of Daniel.
This one's on the house.
Daniel smiled warmly. Thank you. The lead FBI agent then stepped forward, carrying a thick classified folder. Director Hayes, we've completed the investigation. He handed the file to Daniel. Daniel opened it briefly before looking at Victor.
The criminal organization we've been investigating has operated in this county for years.
He paused.
They depended on one thing: officers making arrests based on assumptions instead of evidence.
Victor's eyes widened. Daniel closed the file. You unknowingly became part of the problem. The governor turned toward the sheriff. Effective immediately. You are suspended pending a full internal investigation. The deputies silently removed Victor's badge and service weapon. No one spoke. As Victor walked toward the exit, he stopped beside Daniel.
I'm sorry.
Daniel nodded respectfully.
I accept your apology. But remember this: the badge on your chest earns authority. Your character earns respect.
Victor quietly walked out of the diner. The customers slowly began applauding. Margaret smiled through tears. You never stopped being a gentleman. Daniel picked up the framed photograph of his daughter from the table. He smiled.
She's the reason I try to become a better man every day.
The governor looked around the diner. Director Hayes, breakfast is waiting at the White House. Daniel laughed softly.
I think I'll finish Margaret's pancakes first.
The entire diner burst into laughter. For the first time that morning, the room no longer felt tense. It felt like home. Sometimes the strongest people don't prove their power by raising their voices. They prove it by remaining calm when everyone else loses control.
If this story touched your heart,
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more emotional stories with powerful twists and unforgettable endings.